Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
Dr. Jordan Peterson is a renowned psychologist and best-selling author. He has emerged as a powerful voice against the rising tide of woke culture. With unapologetic openness and razor-sharp insight, he challenges the ideological foundation of this movement. It sparked heated debates and intense discussions worldwide. Can his views help turn the tide against woke culture, or will they fuel even more controversy?
Professionals are bound by law to offer gender-affirming advice. If you bring your 13-year-old in to be evaluated by a physician or a psychologist, tilting towards depression and anxiety, and then that's making itself manifest in bodily discomfort, now that's being shaped by this cultural fad.
The term woke originally emerged within African American communities in the early 20th century. It was used to encourage awareness of racial injustices and dangers, such as police brutality and racial inequality. For instance, Huddie Ledbetter was a folk singer. He used to say, "Stay woke" in the 1930s to warn people about the risks of systemic oppression. Woke culture today is all about being socially and politically conscious. It is particularly regarding issues of race, gender, LGBTQ+ rights, and economic inequality. It champions active participation in fighting against injustices like discrimination and social exclusion. As the world becomes more interconnected, woke culture encourages individuals to question dominant societal norms. It promotes justice for marginalized communities.
The reason I'm defending freedom of speech, because that's how people with different opinions settle their opinions in a civil society.
While woke culture has garnered support for bringing important societal changes, it has also faced criticism for creating division. Critics argue that it can lead to cancel culture. Jordan Peterson has become one of the most vocal opponents. His battle over free speech began in 2016 when he opposed the Canadian Bill C-16. He aimed to extend protections for gender identity and gender expressions under the Canadian Human Rights Act and the Criminal Code. The bill introduced penalties for refusing to use gender-neutral pronouns, a practice Peterson viewed as a form of compelled speech. His opposition was not to the recognition of transgender individuals.
Nation against gender identity and gender expression. That's not the point. The point is the specifics of the legislation that surrounds it and the insistence that people will have to use compelled speech. That's what I'm objecting to.
But to the government's involvement in mandating language. He saw it as a violation of free speech principles. His central argument against the bill was that it imposed legal requirements for using specific gender pronouns. It effectively compels citizens to adopt particular forms of speech. To Peterson, this sets a dangerous precedent where the government dictated language, limiting individual autonomy over what can be said. His critics, on the other hand, argued that the bill merely protected transgender people from discrimination and harassment. The situation propelled him to international fame as he publicly debated the implications of compelled language on major platforms. His stance attracted a wide following of supporters who shared concerns about overreach in governmental control and political correctness. At the same time, it sparked outrage from advocates for gender rights. Many of them accused him of promoting intolerance. Peterson, however, maintained that his objections were rooted in defense of free speech and not an attack on transgender individuals.
A naturally evolving solution to the linguistic problem that's being posed by a small fraction of the transgender community, that people would have already adopted it. We've never had a situation in the usage of English before that required legislation to produce a transformation in the manner in which people spoke.
Peterson often draws comparisons to George Orwell's 1984, highlighting how control over language can be used to control thought. It can also limit the range of acceptable ideas. This could lead to an erosion of free expression. Peterson contends that identity politics creates an environment where individuals are categorized by immutable traits like race and gender. It stifles personal growth and accountability. He advocates for a society where individuals are judged based on their actions, merit, and character, rather than being defined by their membership in a group. This perspective aligns with his broader emphasis on individual responsibility. He sees it as the core foundation for personal development and societal harmony. Peterson worries that placing too much focus on collective identities undermines individual achievement and accountability.
Pride is a cardinal sin, and there's a reason for that, and the reason is that pride means something like stubborn refusal to change. Evidence of error is accruing. It's not a good thing. There's a real tinge of narcissism, sexual narcissism, about the whole pride spectacle. Do people have the right to express their sexuality the way they see fit? To some degree, if it's consensual and among adults, but generally among human beings with any degree of civilized, it's a pretty damn private affair. We tend to be private.
One of his core concerns is that this focus reduces people to mere group identities, overshadowing their individuality. Peterson has stated the problem with dividing people into groups and subgroups is that the groups became a higher moral authority than the individual. This reduces the importance of personal responsibility and leads to a victim-oppressor dynamic that overshadows individual merit and character. He also critiques the identity politics movement for perpetuating resentment, claiming that it creates an increasing sense of tribalism and positions certain groups as perpetual victims. In his words, this kind of thinking leads people to view society as a battleground of identity groups rather than a place where individuals can thrive based on their capabilities and responsibilities.
So I should have either called him, her, they, Elliot instead of Ellen, although as we will discover that would have made it impossible for me to say what I wanted to and need to say.
Jordan Peterson's Twitter controversy became a significant chapter in his public career. It highlights his ongoing battles with free speech, censorship, and woke culture. In a tweet posted on June 22, 2022, Peterson dead-named Elliot Page. He referred to him by his previous name before transitioning and said, "Remember when pride was a sin and Ellen Page just had her breast removed by a criminal physician?" This comment was flagged by Twitter as a violation of its policy against hateful conduct, leading to Peterson's suspension. Twitter gave him the option to delete the tweet, but he refused, stating that doing so would amount to an admission of guilt. His response to this was defiant, and in a video posted later, Peterson said, "I would rather die than delete the tweet, and hopefully it will not come to that.
But the suspension will not be lifted unless I delete the hateful tweet in question, and I would rather die than do that."
His suspension brought attention to the broader debate surrounding free speech and censorship. It is particularly within the context of social media platforms. Critics argued that Peterson's comments were harmful and violated platform guidelines aimed at preventing harassment. When Elon Musk acquired Twitter later in 2022, many previously suspended accounts were reinstated, including his. Musk's stance on reducing content moderation on the platform aligned with Peterson's critique of big tech censorship. This event was seen by Peterson and his supporters as a victory for free speech. Opponents viewed it as an indication of the growing challenges of balancing free expression with responsible content moderation. He has also been highly vocal about what he perceives as the growing influence of woke ideology in academia. In various interviews and lectures, he has consistently argued that universities have become grounds for radical leftist ideologies. Institutes prioritize identity politics over intellectual rigor and critical thinking. He frequently criticizes how concepts are used to categorize individuals. They are promoting collective identities at the expense of personal merit and responsibility. In one notable lecture, Peterson reflected, "What the universities have done, in particular the faculties of education, is to train a whole generation of people who believe that the success in life is determined by their race, gender, and oppression status." He suggests that this focus on victimhood and collective identities erodes the principles of meritocracy and personal responsibility that should be the foundation of education. So it's all about the woke culture versus Jordan Peterson. If you like this video, make sure to visit our channel for more.